Welcome to the hyperPad workshop. This is one of my favorite workshops because of how engaging it is. I have never seen students get so engaged so quickly with any workshop that I've ever done on any platform. But with the hyperPad platform, it is so easy to code and it allows students to import things like sound effects and their own characters that they've created from other apps, and you connect to the camera roll, and you can even connect to apps like GarageBand and import your soundtracks, let alone create your own sound effects and special effects like fire and snow within the game. And so one of the reasons I find hyperPad to be such a great app is because it's all about creating objectives for the game and working out what the problems are and then solving the problems. And I usually start by getting the students to write down their problems and then solve them and then convert them into pseudocode and then do flowcharts on how to solve that problem. So it's nice and clear to the student before they even start creating their game and doing coding. So I'm going to show you a quick example of a game that I created in hyperPad. And this is just a quick game called African Space Animals. And I created the character and some of the bad guys in the game using Keynote. And I just used shapes to kind of create my own characters. And then I exported those shapes and those characters as PNGs, so they had a transparent background. And I saved them to the camera roll. And then I imported them into the hyperPad app. And then I added a soundtrack from GarageBand. And then I added a whole bunch of tiles and free images online, so you can build things like backgrounds and graphics and tiles for your ground and for your caves and for your water and whatever else you need to build for your game. And so this is what it looks like if I just press play very quickly. It opens up the app and you can see I can do a double jump. Okay, I've got shoot buttons, I've got a scoring system, and the whole point is to try and get to the end of the stage without getting destroyed by the bad guys. And if you fall off, for example, you restart the level again. And if I just quit out of here for a second and click on any of the characters like the zebra, and I go to the behaviors, you can see there's a whole bunch of coding going on in the background to make that zebra work. So there's a jump button, and that changes a graphic. There's a shoot button to shoot out lasers. There is a joystick control. There's a screen follow prompt that makes the screen follow you. If I hit the bottom of the edge of the screen, I restart the scene. So we're going to go over some of the basics before you get overwhelmed with the coding here, and then we'll get into the actual nitty and gritty, and we're going to create a game together. So let's start by looking at this Keynote that I've given you as a resource that you can download and share this with your class. And I've done it as a Keynote and as a PowerPoint, so it will be in the course. If you just scroll down to the resource page, you can download this and use this before you even open up hyperPad with your students. So the first page says, why hyperPad? And why not just do another app like Swift Playgrounds? And there's a whole bunch of other coding apps that I love and use, but Swift Playgrounds takes quite a while to get your head around, and there's no way you're making a game as comprehensive as hyperPad without spending years and years and years of doing coding and design. Whereas we can create something within a few hours using the hyperPad app. And so that's point number one that I usually make with classes. Number two, I like to create and tell stories. I like to import characters from the camera roll. I like to design my own game objectives and not just do other tutorials. And students like that too. And I like to create my own sounds and special effects, which you can do within the hyperPad platform. And then I like to import music from GarageBand and have my own soundtracks behind the game, which is something else that students love to do as well. So before we even start creating a project in hyperPad, I say to the students, if you were going to create a game, what would you do to define the problem of the game? They said, what do you mean? What kind of problem? Well, what are your objectives for the game? And so I say to them, I need you to write down just in a paragraph or type it out in your own words, what is the problem of the game? And so they have a basic storyline. And then they have to outline their game objectives. And they have to make the game interesting to play, of course, and then make the game look and sound fantastic. So it's engaging for them and anyone that plays the game. So that's the first thing that we start with. Then I go through and talk about some of their favorite games. You know, Minecraft is very popular. Super Mario used to be very popular when I was young.
Mario, what happened?
I hit it with my head!
Why did you hit the block?
Some of them have coins!
Really?
No!
And I say, what are some of the objectives of some of your favorite games? I want you to write down 5 or 6 objectives of your game. And if you're talking about Super Mario, here are some of the very, very obvious examples. I'm sure most of you listening have played Mario, even the original one from the late 80s. You have to rescue Princess Peaches, you have to collect coins. There's a time limit that you have to try and beat. All of those things that you're very familiar with, I'm sure. So these are some of the objectives for the Super Mario Brothers game. And then once you've written out the problem in English or whatever the language is of the student, then we convert it to something called pseudocode. So pseudocode is basically taking their written English and converting it into words that can be made into an algorithm and very easy for us to process into like a flowchart, for example. So Mario might equal M and coin might equal C. And then if we were to do an if-then statement, we might say something like, if M collides with C, so if Mario collides with coin, then we want our coin count to go up by 1. So every time Mario bumps into a coin, we want our coin count to rise by 1. Very simple to write out in English, and that is a very simple pseudocode or if-then statement based on that very fundamental principle. Then if you want to, and I usually do this more with secondary than primary, we can talk about flowcharts. So I define what a flowchart is, and with hyperPad I usually only go into 2 fundamental flowchart entities, which is the decision or condition, which is the diamond shape, and then underneath that the process. So what happens? What will you do if the decision is made? And so the flowcharts don't have to be too complicated. They can be very, very simple. I usually go through a couple of examples of flowcharts with the students. And so I've given you a few examples in this particular Keynote or PowerPoint that you can use with your students. If M equals Mario and C equals coin, and we have an if then else statement, so if Mario collides with C, then something happens. Well, this is the flowchart representative. So we have M collides with C. Is it true or is it false? And if it's false, we do nothing. And if it's true, we take the coin count and we add 1 to it. And so this is a very, very basic flowchart of that pseudocode, which came from a fundamental English statement based around a problem and an objective that we have to try and solve in the game. So let's go on to one that they might be more familiar with on a daily basis. This is a milk example, an if then else statement for milk in the fridge. And the statement might look something like this. M equals milk. If M equals less than 10%, so if my milk is running low, it's maybe less than 10%, then I need to go to the shops and buy more M. Else, I drink the M, or I add it to my cereal, whatever. And here's a flowchart to represent that. You've got the decision, M equals more than 10%. It's a true statement, we drink. If it's a false statement, we go to the shops. Here's one more example, and this one's on Petrol. You might be familiar with the movie, Back to the Future. If P for petrol is less than 10%, then a warning light might come on and we might need to go to the petrol station. Else, we can just keep driving until we run out of petrol, or we might need to turn our hazard lights on by the side of the freeway, which hopefully that hasn't happened to you before. Here's a quick flowchart of this example, and you can see that there's a decision there. Is P equal or more than 10%? If the statement is true, we can keep driving, and if it's false, we turn on a warning light or we go to the petrol station. I can make that as complicated and as long as possible. And so now you can see that there's a warning light. Can I get to the petrol station, or do I have to pull over and turn on my hazard lights? So these flowcharts can be as simple or as complicated as the objectives require or the student can handle. And so that's something that you can help the students with as they create objectives for their game. Here's a very simple objective that I had in my game that I just showed you then, African Space Animals. And I wrote it out first. And this could be the students writing this out. If the zebra falls off the platform and touches the bottom of the screen, then we need to restart the level. Here's pseudocode for that. If Z touches screen bottom, then restart. And on the right hand side, I've taken a snippet of the code from hyperPad. And you can see I've selected the zebra. You can see the zebra's in the middle of the box there. And if it hits the edge of the screen, and I've actually selected it. Have a look at the bottom right corner there. It says detect bottom. So you've got detect left, right, top, and bottom. And I've got detect bottom. Then we restart the scene. Now, it might be very, very simple once you see this, and you go, oh, that's so easy, Steve, maybe too basic. But if they can't write it out in very, very simple terms, they probably won't be able to figure out how to code and solve the objectives when they start coding. And this applies to any coding platform, whether you're using C++ or whether you're using Swift Playgrounds, or whether you're just using something basic like visual coding. It's still very important to make sure you can define the problem and solve it first. Here's a quick flowchart of that problem. Once again, is Z touching the bottom of the screen? That's your decision. True, yes, we restart. If it's false, then we do nothing. The next step is, once you've explained to the students to get your objectives, how to solve the problems, and how to start putting that together in a storyline, then they might be ready to start gathering all their graphics. And so I talk to the students about PNGs, how they have transparent backgrounds, or you can just get tiles. Tiles are usually squares, and you don't need to get a transparent background with a square. So if you just get this tile, the grass that I've got from Google here, then you don't even need a PNG because it's just a tile. But if it was a character, it had an outline, you don't want a white box or a black box or something like that behind it. So that's where you might need a transparent PNG. And so you can just go to Google and go to Tools and go to Creative Commons if you want a copyright-free image of a character or some kind of, you might want a giraffe in your game or whatever it is that you're looking for. And so you can maybe get some images, or you can create your own images. And so I actually created a lot of my characters for my game just using shapes in Keynote. There's another fantastic app, which is a paid app, but it's an amazing app called Procreate. You can get that on the iPad. Some of you might be familiar with that. You can take pictures of things, and you might be able to just take a photo of something really cool and use that as a character in your game. I've seen a lot of students do that with their toys. And you can import everything from the camera roll into the game. For our characters, if you need to remove a background, you can simply import from the camera roll into the Keynote app. So here's a picture of Sonic. And select the photo, then go to the paintbrush and choose remove background. And that instantly removes the background, no matter what color that is. And now we can share that photo back into our camera roll and import it into hyperPad. But make sure that when you export it, you choose the images option and choose format as a PNG and turn the transparent background option on. I also love the fact that you can use GarageBand and import your own soundtracks. And once again, I've highlighted the workflow for doing that. So when you go to share, as long as you've got the hyperPad game installed on the iPad, you can press share, select hyperPad, choose the song option in the middle there where it says share song, and then you can share that song and it will import into your hyperPad games audio or sound library. So you can import that later on if you want to as well. And let me tell you, when they do a project in hyperPad, this is a favorite. So we're going to build a game in a moment, but I need to start by just saying one very, very important thing. The best type of games for me in hyperPad are the platform games, which are based around a y-axis and an x-axis. I remember running a year 1 class in Sydney many years back, and the teacher said, I can't believe you're going to try and do coding with my class. She was kind of forced to do it by the principal. Can't believe you're going to do this. The kids can't even spell their own name. I mean, talk about the poor students not even getting a chance. She's saying they can't spell their name. The confidence of the students were quite low. And I said to her, just let me run the day if that's possible. And we had such a great time. Every single one of those students understood that the y-axis went up and down and the x-axis was a cross, and I make the cross symbol, and we have gravity turned on the y-axis at, by default in the game, -25. So whenever something is there, it's going to just fall off the screen unless you make it static, because it has gravity. And the students absolutely understood this. Every single one of those year 1 students, I had about 30 of them, understood exactly what this meant and understood what the y-axis was, understood what an x-axis was. I know that these fundamentals are usually taught in much later years, but that does not mean that the students don't understand it, even at a younger age. And so this is important when you're creating a game, a platform game in hyperPad like Sonic the Hedgehog or Mario Brothers, that they understand the x-axis and y-axis and they understand that there's gravity turned on already. We're going to start now by creating a game together. And so I have imported some images into the camera roll and we're going to build something together. And if you've got your iPad out, I'd love you to follow along and see if you can have a go at creating something together. So in video production or computer games, you have different layers, and hyperPad has different layers built in. The global user interface level is for static items like health bars and lives and scores that don't move around on the screen, and when you move across the screen you don't want them to follow you and you don't want to interact with them. You just want to watch them change and move up and down if it's the health bar. The second one is the scene user interface, and these are for stationary objects that you don't interact with but they're behind the character. And then you've got the main layer, which is where your main characters and your grounds and your bricks and your physics items go on, and this is what you interact with and jump up and down on or collide with. So these are very important, and it's very important that you understand there are different layers in hyperPad, and then you can go in and add more layers if you need to as well, if you want to have another layer behind your main scene, for example. The second really important concept to get your head around for hyperPad is the fact that each game entity or element that you put into the game has a different type of behavior. The first one is for main characters, the rocket icon, and that means that it will interact with the physics and the gravity. So gravity will pull you off the screen, and you can also interact with things like joysticks and the jump button. So the physics element is the first one, and that's for main characters. The second one is the brick icon for static entities like bricks and walls, but also for patrolling baddies and any other item like a coin or something that might contribute to the score. And the final behavior is the scenery background entities. And so these are things that you don't interact with and you just run past, like a tree in the background or something like that. So these are the three different types of behaviors in hyperPad, and it's really important that you turn physics on for your main character. We're going to start by creating a new project. So when you click on the hyperPad icon, you might go to a menu where it asks you to log in and sign up. So I'm going to assume that you've already done that with your school and they've already purchased the app. And then when you're ready to go, you go to the Projects tab, which is at the bottom here, the second one, and then you go to New Project in the top right corner and create a new project. So we're going to title this Platform Game Demo. And then after you've done that, just press Next. Don't worry about all these different settings. By default, it will go to Landscape Orientation, which is what you want. And then it will also, by default, go to Gravity -25 on the y-axis. That means that your main character will fall off the screen like Mario or Sonic the Hedgehog, and so you want to just keep that roughly around -25 by default, which is really good. So I'm just going to click on Create, and then it will create a brand new project. So it looks a little bit daunting at first if you're not used to the UI, the user interface, but it's actually really intuitive and easy to use in my opinion. So the first thing that we're going to do is add in our main characters. Now, if you click on the filing cabinet icon in the bottom right corner, that will bring up a whole bunch of options there. So new folder, get assets, import, create effects, and multi-select. And the really, really important one to start with is import, the import icon. So if I click on import, I've got graphics, animations, particles, music and sound, and we're going to import our main characters and our main game assets. So we're going to select the very top one there, graphics. It will ask you whether you want to import those from a Dropbox or a files. And Dropbox is really good if you have a shared class folder and you might have a bunch of entities that you have saved as a teacher that you want to share to all of your students to put into an app design project that you're doing, or it could be a game that you want them to create. And so you've already got all the entities and maybe some copyright images that you want to share with them. But in general, you would usually airdrop them the entities instead of going through Dropbox, and so they'll all be sitting in their camera roll ready to go, or the students might have saved their own entities and pictures and created their own characters already, and so they should be in the camera roll already. So I'm going to click on camera roll right now, and I'm going to go down to a folder that I've called hyperPad images right at the bottom there, and I've got 8 images in there ready to go. So I'm actually just going to select all of these different images. You can see one is a main character, one is a carrot for the food, I've got a brick there, I've got a few other ones as well, I've got a game over scene, and I've got a congratulations you've finished the game, I've got a wolf which is the baddie, and I've also got my little princess bunny rabbit. And so I'm going to press done and import all of those images, and you can see that they're now in the hyperPad project ready to import. And so before I import these characters, I just want to show you how I created my main character, which is the little rabbit here, and also how I created the princess. So I created the main character using Keynote drawing, and I created the princess just using Copilot. And there is a myriad of different ways that you can create your own characters. You can use Procreate, you can use Keynote, you can use any Paint app, and you can export them as PNGs and import them into your project. So let's start by having a look at how I created the main character, which is the rabbit with the top hat, and we're going to go into Keynote now and have a look at that. I'm now going to open up the Keynote app on the iPad, and I'm going to go to a brand new presentation. And I'd love to get students to create their own characters from scratch. So I'm going to go up to the little icon at the top middle there, which looks like a picture. And I'm going to click on that little picture icon. And second from the bottom in this menu, right down the bottom, is the drawing option. And so I'm going to click on that and just use my fingers to draw in my main character. And students love doing this because they get to create their own characters that they can put in their games. And so I'm just drawing a bunny rabbit here. I've sped it up a little bit so you don't have to watch me for half an hour draw a terrible little, I'm not the best artist in the world, I'm more of a musician. But anyway, we can put little objects on there like glasses, we can import things. I'm going to do a little top hat here. And so we can make our own character to fit our story and our objectives. And then I'm going to go to the paintbrush icon and I'm going to choose no fill for the background. This is really important because when you import the picture into hyperPad, you don't want a white box around it, you want it to be transparent. So we call that transparent PNGs. So make sure that you go to the paintbrush icon and choose no fill for the background. So I'm just going to finish off this main character, and then I'm going to go to the export button and choose images. And then I'm going to do that as a PNG and transparent background. Make sure that you've got that switched on, transparent background. And once you've done that, you can save it to the camera roll, and then you will be ready to go to import into your hyperPad game. Another cool way of creating your own characters or entities for hyperPad is using Copilot. Now you can use Copilot on any computer or an iPad or a Mac, and I'm just going to type in create a cute little princess with a plain white background. I want a plain background so I can remove the background and import this character into hyperPad as a PNG with a transparent background as well. So you can see that Copilot has quickly created this cute little character. I'm going to save that. I'm actually doing this on a Mac right now, but you could absolutely do this on the iPad. And I just want to show you how it's exactly the same on a Mac. You can still remove the background, and you can also export this as a transparent PNG. So once you've created the character, import it into Keynote, remove the background, and then go to File, Export, and make sure you choose Images, and then choose PNG, and then it will export this as a transparent character. You can also crop your character because you don't want a huge thing taking up the whole screen. So if you want to open this up, you can press Command K on a Mac and you can crop this, but you can also do this on an iPad through the camera roll. There's lots of ways you can do this. I wanted to show you both the main character on the iPad, and I wanted to show you another character using Copilot on the Mac, and you can import all of your entities and airdrop them onto the iPad and save them to the camera roll, and you can import them into hyperPad. It's fantastic. It works really, really well. Then you don't have to worry about things like copyright because you're creating them in Copilot. Fantastic. Once again, we're going to talk about how to import the entities from the photo library, which is very easy. Again, you press the cabinet in the bottom right corner, go to Import, click on Graphics, and then Import from the camera roll. And I'm just going to go to my folder that I've created called hyperPad Images. You don't have to create a folder to import your entities, but I recommend it. And I'm going to click on all of these and press Done, and then it imports them all into my project ready to go. So the first thing that I'm going to do is click on that shelf at the top there, and you've got the main user interface here with the big green sort of rectangle. And in the top left corner is my background icon. So I'm going to start by creating a background for our game. And I'm going to click on that background image, and click on background, and then anywhere in this gray box, you just tap it. It says, do you want to import an image? I do. I want to use my background, beautiful forest here. I'm going to click on that. I recommend pressing the stretch option, which is this first one. What that does is fill the whole background area of the scene with a beautiful picture. And you could have made that picture, you could have taken a photo of the school playground equipment or something, whatever you're doing for your particular app or for your game. It just fills it all out. And so as the characters move around the screen, that background, instead of being a boring white background, it's some kind of beautiful image that you've created as your background. So that's the first thing that I do before I even import any of my characters, is I create a background. And now we're going to import some graphics of bricks that your character and maybe your bad guys can run around on, just like the platforms in Super Mario Brothers or Sonic the Hedgehog. So we're going to click on the cabinet icon in the bottom right corner, and I'm going to choose the ground graphic that I got. It's a copyright-free image. And I'm going to drag that and drop that in to my scene. And that is massive. It's way too big. So I'm just going to select it. I'm going to resize it. And you can make that smaller or bigger if you need to. And I'm just going to put that maybe in the bottom left corner there. And if you want to do multiple ground bricks, instead of just dragging it again and then having to resize it each time, click on the little copy icon just above the trash bin, and that will copy it. And I'm going to copy a whole bunch of them like this. Now, you might want to add in gaps into your platform for the character to accidentally fall through. You don't want to make it too easy for them. And so I'm going to grab a couple of those and I'm going to make little steps over here. And feel free to go off the screen. Remember, the background will follow you around. Okay, so you don't need to have them all within that rectangular box where the scene is. Your scene in your game is massive. You can make it as big as you need to. And that background screen will actually follow you around. So you can put these items and these bricks all over the place. Keep copying them and make them nice and big. Make steps, make gaps in them. You can do whatever you think is going to look good and be good for your gameplay. So I'm just going to create some little more gaps here, and that'll do for now. So these are ground bricks, so your character doesn't fall straight off the screen and can run around and jump over them. You can jump over the gaps just like you can in some of those classic platform games that I'm sure you're familiar with. So now that you've added your bricks, it's time to add in your baddie. And I'm going to click on the filing cabinet in the bottom right corner, and I've selected on my little wolf, and I'm going to drag that into the scene and drop the baddie where you want. So I'm just going to put my baddie maybe around there, and I might even resize the baddie, just make it a bit smaller, just like that. And that's as easy as anything to just drop that character in. However, that character, if I just press play, will be sitting there doing nothing. And I want to make a patrol command to make sure that that baddie is kind of moving around the screen a little bit to make it a little bit more challenging to jump on top of or jump around it. So I'm going to click on the baddie. And whenever you want to do coding in hyperPad, you have to click on the Behaviours icon in the middle right of the screen. So I'm going to simply click on Behaviours. And then I'm going to go up to where it says Object, which is the second one from the top left corner. And I'm going to do a Patrol command. So Patrol is right down the bottom, second from the bottom there. And I'm going to click on Patrol, drag that anywhere into my coding window. And so when I tap on Patrol, it brings up a menu on the right hand side of the screen there. And by default, it will already move on the X axis, okay, which is across from left to right, by -6, and it has a duration currently set to 1 second. So I can change that duration, maybe make that 3 seconds, and I can also make that movement nice and big if I need to, but -6 might suffice for you. If you want the character to go up and down, instead of going 6 on the X-axis, you might want to click on Y and make the character go up and down instead of left and right. So I'm going to keep it just on X for now because I think that's pretty good. And we're going to test our game by pressing play right at the top middle there. And you'll see now that when it starts, my character will be moving to the left and then turn around and go to the right. And we'll just keep rotating every 3 seconds because we set the duration to 3 seconds. If you want the character to go faster, you would just set that to maybe 1 second or 2 seconds. And you can see that that character is moving, and it will just continue in an infinite loop until you either destroy the character or you go to the next scene. I think it's so easy to add in baddies and make them patrol. And if I need to exit out of this now and go back to my coding window, I just simply click on the menu icon in the top left corner and I press quit. And then I'm back to my main menu. And so once again, if I want to change the duration and make that go much quicker, I'll press 1 second. Let's have a go at changing the axes now to up and down by maybe 10. And we'll get rid of the X. If you had both X as set to 10 and Y as set to 10, it would move in a diagonal direction instead of up and down or left and right. But I'm going to set that to 10 on the Y axis, and we're going to press play again and test this again. And now you'll see that the character goes up and down instead of left to right. I think that's so cool and so easy to do. So let's just keep that as a vertical patrol instead of a horizontal patrol for now. And once again, to get back to my main window, press the menu icon in the top left corner and quit right down the bottom there. And then it goes back to my character's coding window by default. If I want to go back to the main user interface, I just click on the back arrow in the top left corner, and now I'm back to my main screen and I can start selecting other icons if I want to change the coding or their behaviors. And it's very, very simple. Very, very simple. So now it's time for the fun bit, which is adding your main character. So hopefully you've created a cool character yourself. If not, you might have got one from Copilot, or you might have imported a copyright-free image. And there's my little rabbit that I created in Keynote from our previous chapter. I'm going to select on the rabbit and it goes to the hyperPad shelf at the bottom there. And all I'm going to do is click on that baddie and drop it somewhere on the scene. So don't have it off the screen to start with. Have it somewhere on the screen, maybe in the bottom left corner. It's way too big, so I'm just going to click on it and I'm going to resize it and make my little rabbit maybe about that big. Okay, now if you need to crop this rabbit because it might have a big box around it, you can click on the crop icon, which is just at the top of this right hand side menu. And I'm going to click on that and it highlights the character and it shows you where the boundaries of that character is. And so I don't want my character to be floating on the ground. I want to resize the boundary and just make that almost eat into the character a little bit like that, so that I can collide into other objects and it looks more realistic. And also, once again, I don't want a gap between the main character and the ground. Once you've finished and you're happy with the boundary, you click on the tick icon in the bottom left corner and that says, do you want to save that change? Yes. And now my boundary for colliding with other characters, instead of being over here, it's going to be right here like this. And also I don't want the character floating on the ground there. I want the character right neatly touching the floor. So that's the first thing that I usually do when I import my main character, is I go to the little crop icon and I select that and then change the boundaries. The second thing that I do, and this is extremely important, is I make sure that my main character has my rocket behavior. We talked about behaviors in a previous chapter. Well, this is where you need to make sure that your main character has the rocket icon selected. So on the right hand side, right in the middle, it says behaviors, and underneath that is the rocket, the brick, and the background. And I make sure that just my main character has the rocket selected. And so if I just move my main character up a little bit now and press play, you'll see that gravity will kick in and it just drops straight to the floor. If I didn't have that selected, the character wouldn't even move. So I need to make sure that I've selected the behavior, rocket, and then the -25 on the y-axis, that gravity kicks in and pushes your character to the floor. I think that's really amazing. I'm just going to go to the menu, press quit, go back to my main UI, user interface. And once again, if it was just selected on brick, let's just test this. So I've gone to behaviors and selected brick, and then I press play, then the character won't move. It won't be affected by gravity. And a lot of students say, why isn't my character, falling to the ground? Why can't I control my character? It's because they haven't selected the rocket icon. So even if you add a joystick, which we're going to do in a moment, if you haven't selected the rocket icon, you won't be able to do anything with the character. So once again, quit, click on your main character and select the rocket icon. This is very, very important. We're going to add in a joystick command so you can actually control the character. So I'm going to go to behaviors, and then in the very top left corner, it's already highlighted by default, interaction, and you can see drag and drop, jump with button, and shoot with button, and just underneath that is joystick. And so I am going to put a joystick controlled command on my screen, and then I'm going to press a jump with button as well. So I have two main controls for my main character, and that is the joystick and then the jump with button. And you don't really need to fiddle with these right now, but you can fiddle with them later. And I'm just going to press play and make sure that this is working okay. So I press play. I can see my character is hidden behind my joystick there, but that's okay. And when I press jump, you can see the character moving around, and I can just jump and press left and right. And if I get underneath my baddie there, oh, he's squashing me. I haven't done any kind of collision commands yet, so there's not really much happening with the baddie. He's just going up and down. Oh, and he's pushed me off the screen, so that's a bit of a bug. Anyway, I will need to quit and go and fiddle with this. And so let's press the menu button and press quit and go back to our main coding window. And then we press back to go back to the main scene. So there we go. We've got a character added in. Very, very simple. I've cropped it, making sure that my collision boundaries are very, very close to my character. And I've also added in a rocket command for behaviors, which means that you're interacting with physics. And when I click on behaviors, I've gone to interaction and I've added a joystick, and I've also added a jump button. And that is so easy to get you started with controlling your main character for your platform game. And now we're going to add in a very, very important function to your game, which is getting the screen to follow your main character. If you press play right now and move your character around the screen, so for example, I go to the left there, the screen doesn't follow the character and just falls off the screen. We want the screen to follow the character, and we want the screen to follow on the x-axis, not necessarily the y-axis. Because when your character falls off the screen like I just did then, we don't want the screen to follow all the way down to the infinite abyss. We want the screen to follow the character left and right, just like a Mario Brothers game, for example. So I'm going to click on the top left menu, and I'm going to click on quit. And now I'm going to click on the main character, which should already be selected, and click on behaviors once again. Remember that behaviors is all about coding your character. So every time you want to make a change to coding, you must select the character or the entity, then click on behaviors. So I'm going to click on behaviors right now. And this time I'm going to go up to the screen option, which is third from the left at the top. So you've got interaction, then object, and then screen. And there's a really cool little command. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll see screen follow, and I'm just going to drag that onto the screen. It doesn't matter where you put it, just put it anywhere that you're comfortable with. Might move that across a little bit. Screen follow. So when I select screen follow, by default, both the x-axis and the y-axis is turned on. I don't want the y-axis to follow my character, so I'm going to turn that off. I only want the x-axis turned on to follow my character left and right. Now, when I press play, and I move my character to the left, you can see the screen is following me, but if I fall off the screen, it doesn't follow up and down, which means we can create a new command to reset the scene. So that is super easy. You just add a screen follow command, and once again, you must click on your main character, go to behaviors, go to the screen option at the top, and then scroll down to where it says screen follow, drag that onto the screen, select it, and just turn on whatever axis works for you. But in my case, for a typical platform game, we just want it to follow on the x-axis, and that's it. One of the reasons I love hyperPad, and one of the reasons it sets it apart from pretty much all of the competition, is the ability to add sounds into the game, and you can create your own sounds. So I'm just simply going to go to the filing cabinet, and I'm going to go create effect, which is second from the bottom left there, create effects. And you can create sound effects, and you can create particles. We'll get into particles and special effects soon. But I'm just going to click on sounds, and I'm going to create a sound. Now you've got pickup, laser, explosion, power-ups, and hits. Every time you click on one of these categories, it randomizes the sounds. And you can go through all of the different settings here and really configure the sound to your taste. So the students can say, I want a longer jump sound or a shorter shoot sound or whatever it is that they're doing. And you can go through there and fiddle with that. If you're happy with the sound, like I'm going to click on jump here, it's going to randomize the sound for me. I go, okay, that's a pretty good sound. I like that. I am going to simply press save, second from the bottom right there. And I'm just going to call that jump. And I'm going to press OK. And every time you save a sound, it goes into the filing cabinet. It creates a folder called sound. So I'm just going to click on back now, and I've got a little folder there, sounds. So if I click on that folder, all of the sounds that I create will automatically start to appear into this folder. So this is really important. Once again, I click on the filing cabinet and I go to create effects, click on sound. I create the sounds, and then when I'm ready and I'm happy with the sound, I just press save and it will automatically create a folder. And there is my sound called jump. That means that if I now click on my main character and I click on Behaviours, I can go and add sounds to different things. So for example, jump with button. I click on that, and then at the bottom there, on the bottom right, it says no sound selected. When I press play, when I jump, nothing happens in terms of sound. But I can simply click on where it says no sound selected, go into my folder of sounds and click on jump. And now you can see it's changed to jump. Now, when I press play on the game and I press the jump button, you can see I've got a beautiful sound effect. And every time I press jump, I've got this super cool sound. And let me tell you, students love sounds. Imagine playing a computer game and you didn't have any sound effects. It would kind of be a bit silly. So having sounds is really, really important, and it is so easy to create your own sounds and then add them into your game. I'm just going to click on the top menu, press quit, and go back to my main user interface. But that is how easy it is to add a sound and attach it to the jump button. Once again, click on the main character, press Behaviours, click on whatever one you want to add the sound to. So for this, in this case, jump, and then click on the jump selection and choose your sound effect. And that's all there is to it. Now we're going to create a game over scene. This brings us to a very important concept in game design and in hyperPad, which is creating new scenes for either game over screens or new stages in your game or new screens for your app that you might be designing. So to create a new scene, we just simply click on the menu button in the top left corner, and right at the top there it says add scene. So I'm going to select add scene, and it goes straight to scene 2 by default. We can rename this to game over scene. And now I'm going to press create, and we get a brand new interface. Now, don't worry, our first stage is still there. If we click on the menu, you can still see scene 1 is still there, but now we're in our game over scene. So I'm going to import a game over graphic by clicking on the cabinet icon in the bottom right corner, and I'm going to choose my game over scene, and we're going to import this as the background. So once again, click on the background icon, which is in a previous chapter, and we're going to click on background and then just click anywhere on that screen, choose the game over option, and then stretch it out like that. So now we have scene 2, or our last scene, and it says game over. And I'm going to add my main character on there just to make it a little bit cheeky. So the little character might say something like, try again. So I'm going to resize the character, put him on the left there. And so let's just create a little text bubble. So if it does appear on this particular scene, game over, the little rabbit will say, try again. So I'm going to click on Behaviours, and I'm going to go to the user interface option, which is just UI, and I'm going to scroll down and find right down the bottom there, it says text bubble. I'm going to drag the text bubble onto the screen. We're just going to select text bubble, and we're going to just put in the text prompt there, which is right on the right hand side of the screen. We're going to put try again, or maybe we'll put something nicer. Sorry, try again, exclamation mark. And we can set that duration for maybe, let's do it for 2 seconds. That's probably long enough. And you can even change the size. You can change the text fonts and things like that as well, but we're going to keep it nice and simple today. And so whenever this scene loads, it will just, by default, if I just press play now, it will just have a little text bubble appear. It says, sorry, try again. Now you would be stuck on this scene forever if you were actually playing the game. So we need to load the original scene back after he finishes saying, sorry, try again. So we're going to click on the menu option and press quit. And this time we're going to go to the scene option, which is sort of to the top right of the main menu. And we're going to just load a new scene. So if you scroll down, you'll find load scene under scenes. So it's kind of just click on scene, scroll down to the bottom there, it says load scene, and we're just gonna stick that on the screen. Now this brings me to a fun part of coding. When you want to connect functions together, you just simply draw a line, doesn't matter where you go on the screen, as long as you connect to the other function, it will connect the two together. You can see that now my text bubble is going to appear, and after that 2 seconds, it's going to load a scene. So which scene do you want to load? Well, let's click on the load scene, and we're going to go select scene and just go to our previous scene, which was our main scene with our rabbit and Baddie and bricks and all that kind of thing. So now when I press play on that, it will load the scene for 2 seconds, sorry, try again, and then go back to the main screen. So this is really, really cool and really, really important, because now we want to add in a function where if our rabbit falls off the screen and touches the bottom of the screen, then we want to go to the game over scene and then reload and try again. So let's just press the menu, press quit, and this time we're going to go back to our first scene. So once again, top left corner, I'm going to click on scene 1. I'm going to select our main character, and we're going to go back to Behaviours. So we have a screen follow here, which we added before. We're going to put a command next to that. So we're going to click on the screen option in the top left corner, third from the left, screen. But instead of pressing screen follow this time, we're going to choose hit screen edge. I'm going to just drag that anywhere on the screen. It doesn't matter where you put it. And so this is a really important function because it basically says when I hit the bottom of the screen, I want to press game over or go to the game over scene. And so I'm going to click on hit screen edge, and I'm going to only detect the bottom of the screen. So here you can see it detects left, right, top, and bottom. I'm going to switch them all off except for the bottom one, which says detects bottom. So that's my if statement. If I hit edge of screen and it detects the bottom of the screen, then what happens? Well, I want to load up my game over scene, and we do exactly the same as we did before, but in reverse. I'm going to click on scene. I'm going to go down to load scene. I'm going to put it underneath, and this time I'm going to connect hit edge of the screen. Doesn't matter where you go as long as it touches. And there we've got load scene. Which scene do we want to load? Select it, load scene, and do next scene, which was our game over scene. If you add like 10 different scenes, you'll see all the different scenes appear in that list there. But let's press play now, see what happens. So we've got our main character, and he's jumping around. He falls off the screen, detects the bottom of the screen, and boom, game over. Sorry, try again, and it restarts the level. And you can make that go for 3 or 4 seconds if you need to. And I just think that that's so easy and so fantastic. So once again, I'm gonna quit out of there, go to the commands. You can see that I've got a hit edge screen from this third option. So hit edge screen, I've turned on only the detects bottom option. And then I've gone to my scenes. I've gone to a load scene, this one here. And then I've made sure that I've selected the right scene, which is going to the game over scene, the next scene. And that's it, very easy. Press play. You can go crazy, jump all over the screen. Doesn't matter where you go. It's not gonna reset the scene until you fall off. Sorry, try again. And then boom, we're back to our main scene. That's it. This is another really fun one of my favorite functions, that is creating special effects and collisions. So we're going to create a special effect. The first thing we're going to do is go to the cabinet icon at the bottom, and then this time when we go to create effects over on the left hand side, instead of creating a sound, we're going to create a particle. So special effects in game design is called particle, and I'm going to click on that. And then you've got all these different amazing effects to choose from. So fire is the first one by default, comet, fountain, explosions, smoke, snow if you're making a ski game or something, shockwaves, portals, all of these different really cool ones. So I'm going to click on the shockwave one. I quite like that one. It looks kind of like an explosion. And I want to apply that to when I collide my main character with a baddie. And so I'm just going to select shockwave, and then I'm going to save that. So bottom left corner, and I'm going to call that shockwave and press OK. And now it has created a new particle folder, and it starts saving all your effects in there, just like it did with the sound option. On the right hand side, you've got all of these different options. You can fiddle with this in your own time, so you can have a duration, so it can go for longer. You can have lifespans, and you can have, particle count, which makes it like a lot more intense. So you can go crazy with all of these, and I'll let you fiddle with that in your own time. But right now we're going to go back, and do we want to save changes? Yeah, we can save the change. That's kind of cool. We'll just save over the top of our shockwave. And now I want to show you how to apply this to a collision command. So let's go back to our main user interface. And this time, instead of clicking on the main character, we're going to apply these rules to the baddie. So we're going to click on the little baddie, the wolf, and we're going to click on Behaviours, and we're going to create a collision command. So the collision command is under Object, and if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see Create a Collision Event. So we don't want the create collision, we want the collision event, and I can drag that anywhere on the screen. And it basically says, if our baddie or our wolf collides with something, what do you want to happen? So I'm going to click on that option, and you can see by default it's already selected as the baddie. In the top right corner you've got the wolf, but next to that is empty at the moment. So we're going to select Object in the top right corner. What do you want to collide with our baddie? And I'm going to simply select on our main character and press the tick button. So this basically says now, if baddie collides with our main character, what do you want to happen? And we want a few things to happen. First of all, we want a particle to jump out and maybe appear on top of the wolf or around the wolf somewhere. So we're going to go to our effects option now, which is sort of in the middle at the top there. It says effects, and we're going to add in a particle. To do that, you choose the Start Particles command. So we're in the effects menu, and we're going to go to Start Particles. We're going to drag and drop that somewhere on the screen, maybe underneath the collision event. So now we've got, if our bad guy collides with our main character, we want to trigger a particle. And that's as simple as it is for the moment. I'm going to click on Start Particle, and I'm going to choose a particle. So by default, there's nothing selected. It says no particle selected. I'm going to click on that. It automatically opens up into the special effects folder, the particle folder, and you can see our shockwave particle, which we just created. So I'm going to select that. And now, if the wolf collides with our main character, it should start the particle. Let's just test this first. We're going to press play. And when I collide with the wolf, you can see, whoa, it says game over. It just pushed me off the screen. Let's try that again. We'll just hit the wolf and boom. Wow, it's creating a super cool shockwave particle every time I touch the baddie. However, it's not doing anything. We don't have a health bar yet. We'll get to that. And it's also not destroying the character. So like in Mario, when you jump on top of a bad guy, it destroys the object. So we need to destroy our wolf if we jump on top of the character. So let's click on the menu, and then we will quit. And now we need to create some kind of destroy option. Before I do this destroy command, I'm going to put in a timer, so maybe it doesn't instantly destroy the character. You might want to see the particle appear for a couple of seconds and then it destroys the character. So I'm going to go up to custom in the top right corner, and I'm going to put in a timer. Timers are quite important. You probably get used to applying timers to various things, like if you're doing an app, for the text to appear on the screen before it disappears. So timers are quite important. And I'm going to join this collision event to the timer. And then I'm going to click on timer. You can change the duration to whatever you want. So it might be a 2-second interval. So we've got a collision event. When the wolf touches the main character, we start our particle, and we've created a little timer. And then after that, we might destroy this particular item. In this case, it's the baddie. So I'm going to go back to objects, and I'm going to scroll down to destroy object. I'm going to drag that underneath our timer, and I'm going to connect that together. So now you've got a collision event and a timer that goes for 2 seconds, and underneath that we've got destroy object, and all I'm doing is destroying the wolf or the baddie. So now when I press play and my character now touches the wolf, instead of the wolf just being there forever, it should create, boom, a special effect, and then after 2 seconds the wolf is destroyed. Now you can make that instantaneous. You can change the duration if you don't like that. Oh, that's too long. You can change that, and you can fiddle with the timer and make that timer maybe 1 second. So let's do that as 1 second, press play. And then once we touch the wolf, we jump on its head, okay, it disappears after 1 second after we see our beautiful shockwave appear. So that is collisions, and that is how to add timers and also how to destroy objects. If that's a little bit confusing, go back and watch the chapter again. I've kind of tried to do it as slow as possible, but I think it just works so well. And you just need to fiddle with what works for your game. There is no right or wrong here. This is all about what fits with your platform game and whether you want a timer, whether you want to add particles into your game, and whether you want to destroy objects when you touch them. Another thing I should point out is that when you click on a collision event, you can also choose whether the collision event only occurs if you touch the top or the left or the right or the bottom of the object. So if you only want to destroy the object by jumping on top like Super Mario Brothers, then you can just put it so only the top is selected. So in Mario Brothers, if you run into the side of a turtle, you're dead. But if you jump on top of the turtle, then you can destroy that particular turtle and without dying. So that's very easy to do. You just click on collision event and then trigger whether it's on top, bottom, left, or right. And in this case, we just want the top selected. And I'm going to press play now. And so if I go underneath the wolf, nothing happens. It doesn't trigger anything. Okay. But if I go on top of the wolf, so let's try and jump above the wolf, I kind of got to the top there and you can see that it eliminated the bad guy. Adding health bars is extremely important. Most students have health bars as part of their game objectives. It's a little bit more convoluted than most of the functions we've talked about, but bear with me, even if you have to watch this chapter a couple of times, it's super important for most students to add in a health bar. One of the reasons it's complex is because you must add the health bar to the global UI or the global user interface layer, which is on the right hand side. If you've got a character selected, you won't see that layer menu. So once again, you just click anywhere in that blank gray window and you'll see the layers appear. And I've got global, scene, and main. I've got a whole chapter on layers near the start of this tutorial. If you haven't watched that, go back and watch that. But most of our coding is done on the main window. And if we want to add in a heads-up display, like a health bar, we don't want it to act like an object. So if I'm just moving across the screen, the health bar would just go away and it would be left behind somewhere. We want it to stay on the screen. So we click on global UI and then we add in a health bar. So I'm going to click on the magic potion next to the cabinet icon down near the bottom right corner. Click on that potion or hourglass icon. And I've got a few different options there. The second option is health bar. And I can add a health bar in there. Now you don't really want the health bar to be where the action is down near the bottom. You want it to be somewhere out of the way, somewhere in the middle of the top of the screen, or I like to have mine in the top left screen. And there's no right or wrong there, but that's just a personal preference. Once you've added that, go back to your layers and choose main, because now we're going to code that health bar. So you can't code if you're stuck in the global UI. And once again, this is very confusing to most students because they're like, why can't I select my character? Or why is my health bar not staying on the screen? It's because they haven't added it to the right layer. That's very, very important. So I'm going back to main now. And now I'm going to code in a collision that affects my health bar. So I'm going to click on the main character and go to Behaviours. And I'm going to add in a new collision. And hopefully you remember where this is, but it's in Object, top left corner. And I'm going to add in a collision event. And I'm going to say when rabbit touches bad guy. So let's go and select bad guy. Press tick. When my main character touches bad guy, what do you want to happen? What are we connecting that to? We're going to connect it to a health bar. So I'm going to go back to UI, which is in the middle, user interface, about fifth from the left at the top. And I'm going to change the health bar status. So I'm going to set health bar, put that underneath, and then I'm going to connect the two together. So now I need to set the health bar by clicking on it and changing the percentage to something like a negative number, minus 25. You can change that to minus 50%. Students can fiddle with this. It could be a really small increment like minus 5%, but generally speaking, I like to do it around a quarter. And make sure it's a negative number. Some students get that wrong, and so when they collide, it adds to the health bar instead of subtracting from the health bar. So just make sure that you've got that event set to negative 25 or negative 50, whatever. And before you press play, it's important that you set the progress to add progress, so in the middle. It's a little bit confusing as well, because if you set it to negative 25%, as soon as you touch it, it will go to negative 25. That's not what you want. You want it to subtract by negative 25. So we need to change the set progress to add progress. So we've got negative 25 and we've got add progress. Once you have those two selected, you can test the game by pressing play. And then when you have a little bit of a collision, you'll see that that goes down by negative 25%. If I touch the bad guy again, negative 50%. Okay, so we've exited back to the main menu. We need one final command here, which is what happens when the health bar gets to 0. So it's all well and fun if you hit the bad guy once or twice, but what happens if you get to 0 health? Well, we want to go to our game over screen. Now the cool thing is we already have a hit edge command which loads the game over screen. We did that in a previous chapter. So instead of doing a whole command again, loading up the game over screen, we're going to just do a very simple workaround, a very simple cheat here. This is really cool. I'm going to go to UI and I'm going to add in a indicator event. Add that over here next to my screen edge, and I'm going to connect the indicator event to my load game over screen. So what's my indicator event? Well, let's click on it. And it says on empty, what happens? So what happens when our health bar gets to 0? We want to load the game over screen. So let's press play. And we're going to hit the bad guy a few times. Boom, negative, boom. Oh, he's got me a couple of times. One more time, hits the game over screen. Sorry, try again. And then you're back to the main menu. There's one final thing to do, and that is we have to set the health bar back to 100%. Okay, it doesn't make sense to reset the game and the health bar's back at 0. So we're going to quit out of here. And so it's very easy to do. Once you're back in the main coding area here, just click on UI, user interface, and then just go down to set health bar. And we're just going to add in a very simple command that says when the scene is loaded, you're going to set the health bar to 100%. And that's it. So we just set to 100%. Now, if we press play and we diminish, so minus 25, let's hit that a few more times, game over. It reloads the scene at 100% health instead of starting at 0%. And so let's just recap what we've added into our coding window here. We have set the health bar to 100% whenever you load the scene. We have a collision event. If our main character collides with Baddie, then we set our health bar by negative 25% or negative 50%, whatever you want. And then an indicator event. So if you happen to get to 0, when it's on empty, it will reload the game over scene that we've already coded when we did the hit edge screen. And so all of those three things are necessary to have a successful health bar. And it's quite easy to do once you know, but once again, make sure that you add your health bar to the global UI and not to the main layer, and it should work fine. If you need to watch this chapter a couple of times to get your head around it, please by all means do it. And don't forget, we've got the PDF that you can go over and read through each step as well. Okay, if you've made it this far, you're doing really well. Let's add in a power up or a snack so we can replenish our health bar. So we're going to click on the filing cabinet at the bottom right corner. And this time we're going to choose our carrot. And we're just going to put a carrot maybe over here on the screen. And I'm going to click on that and make that a lot smaller because it's way too big. So I'm just going to click on the corner there and just make that maybe about there. That's fine. So we want to create a rule that says if we collide with carrot, then we want to replenish our health bar and destroy the carrot, and maybe even add in a sound. And we've done all of these things in previous chapters, but let's combine them together to do this power up. And so we're going to click on the carrot. We're going to press Behaviours. So I asked the students, what's the first thing that you think that we would do? Well, we would probably write out our pseudocode or our if-then statement saying if main character collides with carrot. Okay, so let's go to Object and we'll go create a collision event and we'll do carrot collides with main character, tick. Okay, so that's the first part of the statement. If carrot touches main character, then what do we want to happen? Well, we want to increase our health. So let's go to UI and we'll go to set health bar, join these two together, and we're going to click on the health bar again. And remember, we're going to add progress so we can add 25% this time instead of subtracting 25%. You can also just set progress to 100%. So you could be, oh, I got my carrot, I'm back to 100%. You could do that too. There's lots of things you can do in hyperPad. So I'm going to choose add progress, and this time I'm going to do plus 25%. And that's it. If you just left it like that and you touch the carrot doesn't disappear, so you can keep touching the carrot, and that doesn't really make sense either. So we want to destroy the carrot. So I'm going to go to Object, scroll right down, and find the Destroy object and connect that as well. So not only are we adding 25% to our health bar, we're also destroying the object. So let's press play and see what happens now. So we hit the wolf a couple of times, and then when we hit the carrot, you see the health bar go back up by 25%, and it destroyed it instantaneously too. So that's pretty easy. You should be able to do that quite quickly now that you've done all of the other chapters. And most of the coding from here on in is kind of just combinations of everything that we've already learned. I'm going to quit out of here and go back to our main menu. You might want to add in a sound too, so we know how to do that. We're going to add an effect in a moment. Let's go and create a sound for this. So we go back, click on the filing cabinet, click on Create Effects, and this time we're going to create a sound for a power-up. So let's press Sounds, and look at all these. Pickup, laser, explosion, power-up. Let's choose one that we like. That's a pretty good one. And you can fiddle with all these sounds, don't forget, just like we did in the jump chapter, we can absolutely go to town on customizing our sounds, which is so cool. Students love this so much. I can't explain how much they love it. Let's go and save this as a power up sound. Press OK. And that has automatically gone into our sounds folder. There it is, jump and power up. So let's apply this power up to our little collision. So we're going to go back to the main menu. So we're going to our carrot, because that's what we've applied our collision rule to, not to the main character, but to the carrot. So I'm going to click on Behaviours, and here we've got collision, carrot touches main character, we set the health bar to plus 25, we destroy the object, and we want to add in a sound. So let's go to Effects, and we're going to play a sound, just like we did with the jump button, but a little bit different. I'm going to go whoop, bonk, connect the two together, select the sound, change that to our power up sound. So let's press play now. And then when we get to the carrot, oh, beautiful sound, as well as adding a little bit to the health bar. Very, very cool. And that brings us to the final part of creating a platform game, which is adding in our little princess. And adding in the princess might trigger a game over, but congratulations, you've won scene. Let's do that. Press back, and this time we're going to go to the filing cabinet, and we're going to choose our cute little princess rabbit, and we're going to put the princess rabbit maybe up here, all the way up here, and she's massive. So let's make her smaller. Click on the corner there and resize and put her roughly about there. Okay, beautiful. So let's do a collision rule that says when our main character collides with our princess, we want to go to a new scene, and that's our congratulations, you've won scene, which is the end of the game. And then we've finished our platform game, which is really, really cool. So I'm going to click on Select Object, and I'm going to select our main character. So when our princess rabbit collides with main character, we want to load up a scene. So we're going to go to Scene, and we're going to go to Load Scene, which is down here. Select those two together. And so all we need to do now is just add in you finish the game scene. So how do you add in a new scene again? You press the back, top left, go to our menu, and we're going to add in one final scene. Now you can have as many scenes, as many pages to your app as you need to. Your game might have, 100 stages in there, so you can keep creating new scenes as desired. But I'm just going to add one more scene here, and we're going to call this our congrats scene, and press create. And so on this scene, you probably want to add in a background, and let's go and add in our congratulations scene. Stretch that out. You've done this a few times now, so you should be absolutely nailing this, hopefully. And if not, just go back and watch the chapters again, go through the PDF. You will absolutely get this if you just practice a few times. Students are actually really good at this stuff. It's surprising how quickly they learn and how quickly they create amazing games. Again, I've done this with year ones, by the way, all the way through to senior high school. So it's not just for secondary, it's also for primary. And if year ones can do it, then year sixes can do it, year 10s can absolutely do it. So we've got our congratulations scene. And let's go back to scene 1. And we're going to go back to our rabbit now and behaviors. So we've got this load scene option, and all we need to do is select the scene and choose congrats. And that's it. So let's press play and see how we go. Okay, so we've got our main character. Hopefully you don't fall off the screen there. And then we can touch the bad guy and lose some health. Jumped on his head there, destroyed him. We need the carrot to replenish our health by 25%. And we're going to jump all the way up to our little princess and touch the princess, and it goes to the congratulations screen. And if you want to, you can also add in music to the congratulations scene too. So this is the final part of the game. If you really want to, and again, this is optional, you don't have to do this, we can add in music. So we're not going to go over how to create GarageBand, but in GarageBand, if you've created a soundtrack, then you can save the soundtrack. So I've already created a song earlier. Okay, and that's our beautiful congratulations, you finished the game music. And so all I need to do is go back to the main menu, top left corner. And so I'm going to select this, press share down in the bottom left corner. And I'm going to save this as a song and press share. And this is optional, but you can basically save this to files. I prefer to save it to files. I think it's really easy when you're using hyperPad to access it through the files option. So let's just save that to files and press save. There it is. And now we're going to go back to our hyperPad game, and we're going to click on the filing cabinet and import a music or sound. So we're going to click on that, and it says, where do you want to access this? Through your music library, through Dropbox. If you're sharing, you might have a whole bunch of music that they've created and you've shared it through a Dropbox. But I'm going to click on Files, and then there's my song that I just created, and I'm going to press Open, and it puts it into our main menu, and there it is in the bottom right corner, My Song. So how do you add this to your scene? This is the easiest part of the entire game, I promise. We're going to click on our scene, so congrats scene, and we're simply going to add the music to the scene. That's all you need to do. It's so easy. So when I click on the music, it starts playing, and it has start on play is already selected by default. So that's it. So let's play our game. Let's go to scene 1 and do this one more time. And when we get to our little Princess Peaches or whatever it is at the end, and we're going to climb up, jump across, touch Princess, and there's the music. Congratulations. I think that's just phenomenal. And just before we wrap up, there's one final thing. When you finish your project, you can go to the menu in the top left corner and press save and quit. And then you have the option to share your game if you want to. So I can click on the little ellipsis in the bottom right corner of my project, and my project is just called Platform Game Demo. And then I can go to share file and airdrop that if I wanted to. So I can airdrop that to another iPad or to my Mac to back it up. Or I can press the share button and I can share the link. So I can click on the email button there and share the link, and I can delete the project. There's a few different options there. So you can back up your project. It automatically backs up to the hyperPad cloud, but you have the ability to share it with other students and maybe even the teacher, so you can all experience the game and not just have to play it on the same iPad that it was created on, which I think is absolutely fantastic and just makes the whole experience a little bit more collaborative. I promise you, your students should have a ball with this, and they will need to go through a lot of the steps, step by step, to get the foundations for hyperPad and for coding, going over the pseudocode, going over flowcharts, going over how to actually construct objectives and then solve those objectives. And once they can show you how to solve it, you should be able to apply it to hyperPad step by step. go through the PDF, go through the Keynote or the PowerPoint, which is in the course resources. So just click on those if you want to put that up on the board as they ask questions or going through each step at a time. I've created that for you. And they can also go through the tutorials if you want to give them the tutorial or you want to just go through it yourself. So hopefully you can create an amazing platform game. Good luck and have a great time learning how to code platform games.